for being here. My name is Teresa Berger. I am the head of digital library services at the University of Minnesota Libraries. And on behalf of the SAA UX Section Steering Committee, I'd like to thank you all for joining us and also give a special shout out to our presenters, Shelby and Sruthin. I think this is going to be a really great session for all of us. And just a few bits of housekeeping though. If you're experiencing any sort of technical difficulties during the session or also during the breakout rooms that we'll be having, please use the help function or throw something in the chat. We have co-hosts here and others here to help you. And also just again, a reminder that this session will feature a couple of different breakout rooms. We'll be assigning you to those. So hope everybody's excited and here to participate. We're looking forward to that. And then with that, I'm going to go ahead and take a little time to introduce our presenters and share a bit more about them. So Shelby Kroske has been on the web and user experience team at the Michigan State University Libraries since 2020 and was an in-house print designer for the libraries for many years previously. In her current role, she follows an evidence-backed design process to create wireframes, prototypes, and mock-ups for accessible and approachable digital interfaces and internal building wayfinding. Shelby received her MPS in user experience design in 2021 and is now lead UX designer for the libraries by day and a professor of graphic design at MSU in the evenings. Sruthin Gaddam joined the MSU libraries in January 2015 as a student employee and is a firm believer of lifelong learning and has pursued a graduate degree in library information science and human-computer interaction. Being user experience librarian at the MSU libraries has provided Sruthin with the opportunities to identify usability problems on libraries' digital interfaces and physical services and provide actionable insights to those problems. He is passionate about designing and building equitable experiences for all users, taking additional measures to ensure that libraries' interfaces are accessible to diverse groups and audiences. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn things over to Shelby and Sruthin to get us started. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I will go ahead and share, right, Sruthin, and we'll just jump right into it. Okay.
Sounds good.
How is that screen share coming through? Good. Okay. So hi, everyone. We're going to do a workshop called a UX Journey, Identifying Problems and Solutions to Improve User Experience in Increments. Sorry, I have to actually click on it. So I'm Shelby. As she said, I'm a UX designer, and our contact information is here if you ever want to reach out.
I'm Sruthin. I'm the UX librarian at the MSU Libraries, and yeah, my email and LinkedIn is also on the slide, so please feel free to reach out with any questions.
So we like to define UX like Leah Bewley, who's the author of User Experience Team of One. She defines it as practicing a set of methods and techniques to understand user needs and reducing the friction between the task and tools necessary to accomplish the task. There are two different types of research techniques. One is attitudinal, which is what people say they do and what they think and feel. So it's assessing people's preconceived attitudes or feelings towards a product or experience. For example, that can be like asking what a user likes or dislikes about a product. They're telling you their attitudes about something. And then there's behavioral, where they actually show you what they do with a product. It's so you would ask them how they would perform a task. A couple of different research methodologies. One is qualitative, where you get in-depth contextual information and understanding of why users act a certain way and prefer certain experiences. So these are gathered by interviews and storytelling. And then there's quantitative, which relies on using large amounts of information and large sample sizes to reach a conclusion. So we like to think of it as qualitative research takes 10 people in an interview and uncovers 100 things about your interface, whereas quantitative research interviews or surveys 100 people and validates 10 things. This is a landscape of user research methods that we've pulled from Nielsen-Norman Group. So on one axis, you can see how these fall on a behavioral or attitudinal scale. And on the other axis, you can see how they fall on a qualitative or a quantitative scale. There's also a key for the scripted use of the product, which means if the product is if there's a task list and people are being told how to use the product, like there are tasks being read out and they say, oh, show me how you would do X, Y, and Z with this product, and the user shows them how, versus a completely unscripted use of the product would be them using it on their own without any direction. So if we wanted something that was purely attitudinal and really qualitative, we could do something like at interviews or focus groups. Whereas if we wanted something really quantitative and behavioral, we could do A/B testing or analytics. We're going to talk a little bit about some methods that we've done in the libraries and kind of the results that we've gotten from those. So one of them was graffiti walls, and this can be a space, either a wall or a whiteboard, where people can openly and anonymously share their feelings. I would say this is mostly qualitative, can be kind of quantitative, but it's really attitudinal. So we did this with our homepage, and we printed out a big poster of our homepage and had directions of use the sticky notes to tell us kind of what you think about this new layout of the homepage that we're considering. We asked them, I think the different kinds of sticky notes, the different colors meant different things. So the green sticky notes was anything that they liked on the homepage. The pink ones was anything that they would improve, and the blue ones were for any other comments. So we got a lot of feedback about this, especially about the Discover Spaces section of the page and how that related to Discover Services. A few notes about graffiti walls. The first thing is that it has to be easy and intuitive for people to use and add comments because it's not moderated. So there's no one there telling them how to use it. There's a brief instructional bit at the top, and that's about it. The prompts should be brief. It's really important not to forget about the wall and not to panic when the wall gets abused. There's probably going to be some inappropriate stuff on the wall, especially if you're using this at a university or something like that, and you just have to moderate it and take those down as necessary. The second thing we're going to talk about is A/B testing. So that compares the performance and usability of two different versions of an interface or a product, and you evaluate the effectiveness of both versions. You can do this by either asking your participant to use both versions of the interface and asking them straight up how they like both of them compared to each other. Or you can, we've done this before too, where we took analytics or we took timed tests for one version versus the other version, and we saw like how fast people completed tasks on one page designed one way versus another page designed another way. So when we gave users the ability to see two versions of one design, we used our bento box search results page. So there were several bento box, and two of them you can see here, books and media and articles. One version had the title, books and media, a tag with how many results, and if it was over 1,000, it just said 1,000 plus. And then below that, it said a brief description of what kinds of results you would see. So this one says books, ebooks, journals, audio and video, and more. The second version just had the title, the results, and a little eye icon with a hover or with a tooltip where if you hovered over it, that's when it told you what kind of results they were. So some of the feedback that we got was, I like the 1,000 plus results tag better than the text. It's not intuitive that you have to hover over the tooltip to know there's more. And I like the descriptions that are shown in the previous one without the tooltip. So people weren't really a fan of having to hover over the eye icon to get the tooltip. They didn't think that was very intuitive. So that was really helpful feedback.
Thank you, Shelby. So the next type of research method or UX research method that we are going to talk about is called cognitive mapping. this falls in that attitudinal and quantitative data quadrant that Shelby was originally talking about a few minutes ago. So this is where your participants tell you what they think they would like to see, and it's a lot of qualitative data here. So how this is performed is by asking the users to create a drawing of their mental model of a physical or a digital space. So everyone has a mental model of how the space is laid out, either on a website, mobile app, or even in a physical space. And here, we're just gonna gather a group of participants and ask them a few, or give them a few prompts and ask them to draw how they would like it to behave or how they would like it to look. So we are showing you an example or a screenshot of this activity that we performed at the MSU libraries. This one we actually performed with our colleagues, not with our actual participants. So what we did was, this was before even designing our homepage. So we gave them a Miro board. We, oh, if you could go back. Yes, thank you, Shelby. So we just gave them a Miro board and asked them to just put rectangular, square, or circle boxes, or rectangular and square boxes, as to where they would think the important pieces of the homepage would go. Like where you think the search should be, where you think the hours should be, where should we have the branding, where should we have the address, where should we have the quick links and things like that. So as you can see, like one participant wanted the MSU branding and the library branding to be consistent in the top, but the other participant wanted a smaller MSU branding, but a larger MSU libraries branding. They also wanted the hours in the top heading section. The other participant wanted hours just on the just underneath the header. You can also see some differences, like some wanted a floating Ask Us icon, but the other participant wanted an Ask a Librarian button in the top. So you can see how people are perceiving a homepage in their mind, and then they're just putting that in a pictorial representation here. So we are also specifically interested with this exercise. We were also specifically interested in the hierarchy that they are laying out the contents. As you can see, they want the branding at the top, then the main menu. The main menu may or may not have some additional buttons. Then they want to see the search. Then after that, at the bottom, before the footer, they want to see the address of the main library and some other links and branches of the main library. And the last section would be just MSU branding as opposed to MSU libraries branding. So it's kind of helpful as to figure out the hierarchy of our page. Um, Next slide. Thank you. Okay, so this is very helpful for people who communicate visually rather than verbally. So you might have shy people on your team where they have reservations to speak up. So this is very helpful for those kinds of people to um, express their concerns or express their wishes on what they would like to see on an interface. Uh, a few things to remember is, do not judge them by their artistic skills. You don't even need like a fancy Miro or Figma board to do this. You can just ask them to do it on a piece of paper and a pencil. It could just be like boxes, stick figures, or very basic shapes and diagrams. It's always helpful to have a time limit. You don't want to give them unlimited time, because that has the potential to go wrong in several different ways, and people might dig themselves into rabbit holes that they might find themselves hard to come out of. So it's always helpful to have a time limit. Um, you should be the judge of how much time that you want to give them. It should be based on how complex the tasks that you're asking them to do is. We did it for 6 minutes, which was helpful for us. And then also pay attention to what they omitted. Like if some people are not putting branch hours on the main library homepage, then that is something that we want to take note of because that's the information that they don't want to see on the homepage. So that's always good to know. Okay. So the next type of research method that we're going to talk about is called heuristic analyses. Um, so this kind of falls in that middle quadrant between behavioral and attitudinal. This is a research technique that you usually do with your fellow UX researchers, not with participants. Um, so the reason you do it with your fellow research is your fellow UX researchers is that they have to evaluate your either website, mobile app, or anything that it could be based on these 10 heuristics that are defined by Nielsen and Norman, and based on who you ask, Nielsen and Norman has 10 heuristics, but other organizations have 8 heuristics. We usually stick to Nielsen and Norman, so that's why we have 10 here. And it's nice to have an understanding of the heuristics before doing the evaluation. So that's why we usually do it with our fellow UX researchers. Next slide. Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about each of these heuristics and what they mean to us. So the first one is visibility of system status. So always inform the user about the current status of their page. So if they're on a checkout page and if there's a button uh, to actually purchase a product, let them know that once you hit that button, their credit card is going to be charged and there won't be any surprises. So always keep users informed of the status of where they are in a transaction and what's going to happen next. It's also important to always have a match between the system and the real world. So a good example is if you have a home button on your website, make sure that it goes to the home page rather than some obscure page. So they always try to associate real world objects with your digital interfaces. So it takes that cognitive load off of the user and they can easily know what happens when they perform an action. The next one is user control and freedom. So this one is providing the user actions so that they could quickly undo or redo any things that they performed in the past. So for example, if you accidentally add something to a cart, provide them options to easily remove it because that was done by an accident. Also keep your interface consistent with consistent fonts, consistent colors, font sizes, etc. Like you don't want to change up the color scheme so much that going to a different page makes it feels like they're going to a different application altogether. So it's nice to have that consistency. So the next one is error prevention. There are two types of errors that could happen. The first one is slip, when a user performs an unconscious error by either by inattention or if they're in a hurry or something like that. So a good example is if you want them to fill out a form and the form has like 20 different fields and they kind of skipped a field by accident because there was too much on the page and they hit submit, just tell them that, hey, you missed a required field. Please go and fix it. So that's a slip. A mistake is a conscious error based on mismatch between the user's mental model and the design of your system. So a good example would be is if you want the user to enter a phone number in a weird, obscure format that they are not familiar with, and not giving them any indication as to what that format is, that's a mistake on the designer's or the developer's part, and that should be rectified. So that's the difference between slip and a mistake. And always try to, the next one is recognition rather than recall. So this one is that we shouldn't be expecting our users to remember anything about our site, and we should be providing either visual cues or other help text to jog their memory. Again, a good example for this is having placeholder text. So having a placeholder phone number in your phone number field, explaining the format that you want them to be. So like brackets for the first three numbers, space after it, and three numbers, hyphen, and then four more numbers. So having a little placeholder in the input box helps them a lot as opposed to them remembering, oh, this website requires the phone number in this kind of format. So providing those visual cues and hints would make the life of our user very easy. So the next one is flexibility of use. Um, so often you do have advanced users using your applications. So provide support for shortcuts. So if you know a shortcut to go back to the previous page using a keyboard, please do enable that on your website and things like that. So it makes the lives of your advanced users much easier. So a good example that I encountered in my personal life is when I was a student at MSU, we used the D2L site, and the site had the back button coded in a very weird way that it whenever you hit the back button on the website, it never goes to the place where you want it to go. It always goes to some place weird, and that was so frustrating. So yeah, don't change system behavior and add support for your advanced users. The next one is aesthetics and minimal design. Do not provide too much information. Do not just overload your web pages with a lot of information. Try to keep it minimal. Try to keep the design pleasing so that the users go back with memorable experiences. And the last two are provide enough help text to recover from errors. So again, forms is a good example. Just provide meaningful error messages on forms if they enter data in a weird format that or in a different format that we are not expecting. So error messages could go a long way. And provide lots of help and documentation. The help and documentation could be both proactive and reactive. An example for proactive help is that we implemented this on our main website on the search on the homepage. We have a little tooltip showing a bunch of advanced features that users could use on our search. Like you could use Boolean operators, you could use quotes and things like that. So we provided a little help section, which is proactive help. And then reactive help is lots of documentation on how to use your product or digital interface. So both of them will go a long way. Okay, Shelby.
Yes, I was muted, sorry. That brings us to workshop part 1. So we are going to do user journey maps. So a little bit about user journey maps. These are definitely very qualitative and show a lot of behavioral elements. They identify obstacles and pain points while generating ideas about your interface or about your design. They ensure that the team can keep track of nuanced emotions that participants feel while experiencing a product. The data from these tests or these maps can be shared in the form of a narrative, but this data can be gathered, a lot of the data can be gathered without any need to collect personal identifiable information. So I'll kind of go through what we're going to do. If you have any questions, please don't be afraid to ask, but we will have breakout rooms of about 5 people, and there will be 3 roles. So one person will be the moderator who will read off a series of 3 tasks and ask follow-up questions that will keep the study on track. So we'll have a limited amount of time to do this study. And you'll be all doing it on the same website, which will be our library website. There will also be usability test participants, 1 in each group. You guys will perform a series of, that's supposed to say 3, I'm sorry, I was supposed to change that, 3 relatively common tasks on the website while thinking through the task out loud. And then the rest of the people in the group are note takers, and they will take notes on what the participant does on the screen, what they say, their suggestions, and their attitudes. So note takers, you will have a template that kind of looks like this, and Sruthin and I are going to go through a demo of this for you guys. So we are going to be using the program called Figma or FigJam, which is part of Figma, and you'll be using the sticky note feature. Each task in the list of 3 has its own table or own user journey map. In each table, there is a do section, a think and say, a feel, and opportunities. So under do, you would write what the participant clicks on, scrolls through, reads, interacts with, etc. The next one is think and say, so their thoughts and observations. Again, this is why it's important for the participant to think out loud while they're doing the tasks. The next one is feelings, so record moments of frustration, joy, surprise, confusion. And the last one is opportunities. So if your participant says, oh, it would be nice if it did this, or if you ask a follow-up question, how would this experience be better for you? That could be an opportunity. A user journey map is a really great way to document a lot of information about, you can do a lot of tasks in these. We do about 10 tasks and it takes about 45 minutes or an hour per participant. So the layout of the map is really the core of the exercise. You want to avoid generic notes such as like improve the button or change the color. You want to be more specific than that. The narrative should emphasize how different types of users approach a task. And the narratives can then further be enhanced to develop personas or affinity maps, and we'll be making affinity maps in part 2 of the workshop. Usually when you do a user journey map, you have a script that's part of your task list. Sticking to a script ensures that you don't leave out any information between participants and that all of your participants are exposed to the same type of testing experience. Within this script, there's always an introduction for yourself and the note takers. We also always provide a consent form and give them enough time to read and sign it. And this consent form informs the user that none of their personal information will be recorded, and also that they can stop anytime that they choose and they don't have any obligation to finish the test if they don't want to. We also prompt them to think out loud and remind them to think out loud during the entirety of the test. So some helpful hints for your moderators and for the note takers. So give time between each task to let your note takers catch up, and ask your note takers if they have any questions before moving forward. So they might have heard something from or saw something from what your participant did, and they took a note on it, but they had an extra question about what they did that needs to be clarified that maybe the moderator didn't catch. Don't ask leading questions or lead your participant to an expected answer. My favorite example of this is instead of asking, does this apple look more red or more green? You're leading them to say either red or green. You would say, what color does this apple look like to you? And that leaves it open to whatever color they perceive instead of you leading them to an answer. Remember that this is an assessment of the product and not your participant's abilities, and that can be helpful to remind your participant of too, because sometimes the participant gets really frustrated and they think that they're doing it wrong, or they click the wrong thing, or they're just not doing it right, and they can get frustrated and upset. It's just a kind reminder to tell them it's nothing about how their skills or what they're doing. It's about how your product is functioning, and if they aren't able to understand it, then that's a reflection on how the product was designed. Along with that, if your participant gives up on a task, that's totally okay and is actually really good feedback, and you can just move on to the next task. Follow-up questions can provide really great feedback or observations, context for your observations. Some general questions that I kind of always circle back to are like, how did that experience make you feel? Is there anything that could make that experience better? And what were you expecting to happen just then? I especially like that when I hear like an, oh, or if they seem very surprised about what has happened when they click on a button or if they scroll something or read something and it seems like they weren't expecting what has happened. Okay, so now we'll do a demo. And I'm going to share my other screen. So in this demo, Sruthin will be the
Oh,
moderator.
I can't see your screen, Shelby.
Oh, I haven't shared it yet, sorry. Sruthin, it's gonna be tablet size. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Okay. Okay, so
Oh
this
yeah,
is
that's more
a
than
bit
one.
crowded. But on this side we have the template that Sruthin is taking notes on, and he's acting as note taker and moderator. And I am the test participant, and I'm doing one task on the lib.msu.edu website. So take it away, Sruthin.
All right, thank you, Shelby. Okay, so Shelby, today we'll be performing a task on the main library website. And if you could think out loud while you're doing the task, it'll be very helpful for us to take notes. Also, please do remember that we are not evaluating your ability. We are evaluating the website's ability. So if something doesn't make sense, it's not you, it's most likely us, and we didn't do a good job of designing and developing the thing. We also do have a consent form for you to sign, so I will get that signed for you, signed from you here in a little bit. But to all our participants, it's always nice to have a consent form, so just so that you're covering all your bases. And also do remind the participants that they're not obligated to finish the task anyway. They can just leave at any point if they're not feeling comfortable. Okay, so with that, Shelby, can you find the official website link for the PubMed database? And if you can talk out loud while you're doing the task, that would be great. And here are the sticky notes at the bottom that I'm gonna drag into each one of the quadrant and take notes.
Yes, so if you couldn't see his pointer, the sticky notes are down here. And you can change the color here. So that's where you'll be using the sticky notes. Okay, so you'd like me to find the official website link to the PubMed database. Well, looking at the header for the MSU Libraries page, I see all of these links down here. Although this set of links looks kind of cluttered in my opinion. But I do see the word databases. So I'm going to click on databases. I'm going to go really slow since you're taking notes and moderating.
Mhm.
And I see here that we have a list of alphabetical databases. So I'm guessing that I've realized that this text box or this input box doesn't match others around the site, but I'm guessing that I can type in here. And I'm going to type in PubMed. And then I will click search. And then I believe that this is the PubMed official website.
Okay, thank you. So how do you feel about this whole transaction?
I felt like it was really smooth. It was pretty clear how to get from one place to another. Like I said, I did feel like the links on the home page.
Mm.
Let me go back. I feel like the links on the home page look a bit cluttered and it's kind of hard to pick apart these. But since I knew I was looking for databases, it did jump out at me. I suppose I could have also searched maybe all sources. Oh yeah, databases is right here as well. But I saw this databases first. So maybe just looking at a different way to clean this up would be nice. But other than that, it seemed like a really straightforward process.
Okay, thank you, Shelby. And can you think of anything that we could do to improve the interface or the whole experience of searching on either on this page or on the other page that you were on?
I think this could be a drop down as well. Like this is search all sources. So this could be try an advanced search for, and this could be in a drop down as well, all of these options.
Right. Uh, thank you so much, Shelby.
Yeah,
And thanks for your time and feedback. I really appreciate it.
of course. So I'll zoom into Sruthin's sticky notes here. So he wrote down everything that I did, everything that I said. So the great thing is you guys will have about three note takers in each group. I think there's almost 50 of us here. So what I would suggest is that you break up the sections amongst the note takers. So maybe one person has one line, another person has another, and another person maybe has two, so that you can focus on one area while you're doing the test. And then, so for do, he wrote exactly what I did. Clicked on the databases link under search, use the search box to type the search term. Think and say, the set of links under the search looked cluttered. It was clear to get from one place to another, capturing all of my thoughts, and then also captured that I had to identify the links. I had to pick those apart, and then opportunities were that the advanced search links could be a dropdown. So in your groups, this is the FigJam space, and there are several pages, and depending on what breakout group you're in, you'll go to that group's page. And in each page, there is a list of instructions to recap. There's the moderator task list, so you don't have to read each of these, but it is just these repeated. And then each task has a user journey map that you can put sticky notes in. Does anyone have any questions?
Shelby, I think we're a smaller group now, so which is fine. We have about 20 participants, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to create 4 breakout groups of 3 to 4 participants each. And again, we will drop in these links to your templates and what you need to do in the groups.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, I can drop in that link. It should be open to everybody.
And if any of the groups are having trouble or any questions, me or Shelby can pop into the group and try to answer them.
Okay, I'm gonna give everybody a chance to open this link that Shelby put in, and then make sure you have that open, and then we will put you in breakout rooms. And there's gonna be about 20 minutes, I think, to do this activity, and we will give you notice when we're gonna come back in as a group and discuss what we learned. I think we'll go ahead and get ourselves started, everybody. Thanks for that recording. Okay, you're welcome to turn your cameras on or just sit and listen. But yeah, please feel free to use the chat function or raise your hand, anything like that. And I'll turn it back to you guys. Thank you.
I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Good. Is my screen share coming through okay?
Not coming through yet. Oh, there it is. We got it.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. So thank you everyone for doing the workshop or doing the previous activity. Now we are going into the second part of this. So this is where we'll be constructing affinity maps based on the data you've gathered in your previous exercise. So we do have a quote here from Carly Fiorina. So the goal is to turn data into information and information into insight. So we are going to take all the data that you gathered from your previous activity, and then we are going to turn it into insights. So we are going to do that by a technique called affinity mapping. So an affinity mapping is where you organize related ideas, findings, and concepts into clusters or themes. It's always a collaborative and it's a collaborative sorting activity. The reason it's collaborative is you do it with your team who needs to understand the data. So if everyone is looking at the data at the same time, you can share notes and have a shared understanding of the data that came out of your previous activity. Um, it helps you prioritize the problems or common themes that you identified in your data. And also, don't be afraid to reorganize the data that you got, but do not overdo it. That could be another potential pitfall. So know when to stop reorganizing the data. So why are we doing affinity mapping? So they're incredibly simple. All you need is just sticky notes and a wall. In our case, just a fig Jamboard and digital sticky notes. They are very accessible. So once you identify the themes, they are so easy to share with anyone, and they're so easy to understand for to anyone who is just looking at them. They are tangible. So like you come out of this activity with a physical manifestation of your data, and it's a collaborative activity, so you can have a shared understanding of what came out of your previous activity.
Hey, Sruthin, we don't see we only see the workshop part 2 affinity maps
Oh,
now.
okay, so it's not progressing my slides. Let me stop and try once again. Let me try sharing my whole screen, maybe that. Are you seeing
There we
the
go.
slides go back and forth?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I was telling that the affinity mapping, they are simple, accessible, tangible, and they're a collaborative activity. So how are we going to do this? So now we have a large chunk of data, and this quote is from a book by Andy Presner. His book talks a lot about UX research and libraries. Um, Both me and Shelby have multiple copies of, or the latest copy of his book, and we did read multiple copies of his book. So that book helped us a lot in coming up with a lot of UX research that we do here at the library. So this quote from the book says that they're trying to do some qualitative research on how the library spaces are being used. And one of the participants says that I come to the library most days because it's one of the few places on campus where it's quiet and I can get my head down. I always go up to the third floor because it has comfortable desks with good height and lots of natural light. If it's noisy, I put my headphones so it doesn't matter. I'm fed up of queuing for the water fountains. There should be more. The toilets are grim. I don't really ask staff for help, and I wish the library was open for a few hours longer on weekday evenings. But other than that, the library is great. So this is a loaded quote. There's a lot of things here. There's good things, bad things about the library. So let's take this quote and break it down. So in our affinity mapping, what we try to do is we take the data that we have and try to organize it into suggestions, praise, problems, and behaviors. And we like to color code them. You can use any colors that you want. We do orange for suggestions, green for praise, pink for problems, and blue for behaviors. So this is the code that we just read, and let's decode this now. So we do know that there's a problem with the water fountains. So queuing for water fountains is a problem, and the toilets are grim. So both of those are problems, and they went into our problems section with the pink sticky notes. We do also have a lot of praise from the person saying that this is one of the quietest places on campus. The third floor is comfortable with a lot of natural light and good desk height, and it's a great fit for their study routine. So all of this is praise for the libraries. They're going into the praise category with green sticky notes. Some behaviors that we identified is that they come to the library most days and they use headphones. They're always on the third floor and they don't ask for staff assistance. And some of the suggestions that they gave us are it would be nice if the library was open for longer hours on weekdays and if there were more water fountains. So that quote got decoded into this simple affinity map, which is so easy to understand. So once you have this, the next part is you start identifying key themes. So study space is a theme that we identified that the third floor is a good study space where there's a lot of natural light and good height on desks. Amenities is another theme that we identified. So in under amenities, we have a suggestions where they want more water fountains, and we have a couple problems where the toilets are grim and queuing for water fountains is a problem. So once you have that affinity map, the next step is to like identify key themes and sort your sticky notes under those themes. So this one's a really simple one, but if you're doing this is how your affinity map wall is going to look like. There's going to be a lot of sticky notes. Do not get overwhelmed. This is common. So now we are good, depending on what time it is. Maybe we'll take the next 5-ish minutes to do this as a collaborative sorting activity. Um, so we do in the Fig Jambo that you are working on. Me and Shelby copied all the sticky notes and put them into the Affinity Map 1 board. So if all of you can get to that board. Um, and then there's this white area here for praise, problems, behaviors, and suggestions. So if you guys could start throwing in sticky notes in in the quadrant that they belong, we could start with that. And everyone feel free to jump in. This is a collaborative activity. So pick a sticky note, try and identify the quadrant where it goes to, and then move it there. Um, and, um, just in the interest of time, since we are running short on time, uh, we can like jump to the next activity of the affinity mapping, and I can show you what we do next. So how we do this is just pick a quadrant. So we have the problems quadrant here, and I can already identify some common themes there. Um, so search box is functional, works as expected, but it's overwhelming and difficult. So I see that as a problem with search. So I'm just going to group all the sticky notes that are related to search in like one cluster. So if you guys are still seeing my screen, I found another sticky note says that magnifying glass as as a search is not to search the site, but rather to search the catalogs. Perhaps this is confusing. So this is another problem with the search. So I'm grouping these two together. Um, and see, there's another search one that I saw here. So it wasn't clear what the difference between advanced search option and clicking all sources and beyond was. So this is like another search problem. So we can create clusters, and we can call this cluster the search cluster. So we know what the problems are with the search now, that it was too overwhelming, the magnifying icon was confusing, and the advanced search options were confusing. So, and as you can see, Shelby is naming our cluster up there. Um, and also do the similar under praise. Um, see to see if we can identify some common themes here. Okay, so I think this is between the hours. The alphabetized list in the dropdown made sense, and main library being first, and then felt pretty good about it. Nice that today's hours are in a larger font that help. So that's our hours cluster. Um, so the purpose of this affinity mapping is to create clusters like this, so you could um, see the data and see, oh, where are the problems in the search? What is working on the search? What's not working? What are the user behaviors for the search? And what are some of the suggestions that people gave us on the search? So you could identify that search cluster and have the praise, problems, suggestions, and behavior all together. And then you can make informed decisions based on the data that this exercise gives you. So that's affinity mapping. So after affinity mapping, and we are kind of rushing through these last few slides because we want to give you enough time to ask us questions. So the next stage is ideation. We will not be going into detail on ideation and prototyping, but ideation leads to changes in the policy or development of new services altogether. They should not be derived, they should be derived from data rather than personal agendas. So this is a quote from Andy Pressner, who I was just mentioning, who has a great book on UX research methods and libraries. Um, so the next step after ideation is prototyping. So this is where you take your ideas in the previous step and then build prototypes. Um, so try to keep your prototypes simple. They should be basic and perfunctory and stay clear of nice to haves. Don't be married to your prototypes. They should be so that you have no problem throwing them away if they're not working. So don't put too much effort into them. Make it like really, really basic. So the whole UX research and design model is a double diamond. Today we went into detail on the discovery model uh, where you are opening yourself up to your research participants and trying to gather as much data as you can. And then you're taking the data and converging them into lots of themes. So this is the first diamond that we went through today. The second diamond is where you develop ideas from the data. So again, you're opening yourselves up by developing ideas, and then you're converging together by developing those prototypes. So that's why it's the double diamond model. I know we did not go in detail with the second diamond. That's going to be a different workshop, but uh, this is the end of our presentation, and we want to give you enough time to ask us questions. And we both are like pretty responsive on email, so you can either email us, and that's our LinkedIn handle.
Thank you so much, Sruthin and Shelby. I have a question, maybe kind of putting some of this work into context for others that may be here. So I'm assuming you two will do these sort of studies and reviews with participants, but then maybe you work with a development team. Do they also participate in creating prototypes? And like, how do you get developers involved with your the suggestions that you're making?
Oh, so our team is like really small, in the library. So we are a team of six. So we are also the UX researchers and the developers on our team. So both me and Shelby wear multiple hats. I do UX research and development. Shelby does design and UX research. Um, so it's kind of easy because we are just convincing ourselves to do this work after we get the data. So I I see that as a blessing because we don't have to go and convince someone else to do the work because, hey, this is what the data led us to. We also have other teams in the library, like a different team is in charge of the library catalog. We do work closely with them from a technical standpoint, like they help us with setting up our servers and things like that, but we haven't done any UX work with them up until now. But yeah, hopefully they will also be receptive of all the UX work that we do when the time comes. Um, yeah, Shelby, is there anything that you want to add?
No, I mean there's a I guess there's really only one or two people on our team who don't really take part in the research aspect of our work, and they're really receptive to the research that we do find and the data that we do find. So we're really fortunate to have a team that really understands the importance of the data. And I I really love being a designer and a researcher because I can take what I find and directly apply it to the designs, and that it honestly makes my life a little bit easier because I'm not getting secondhand information. I can get it firsthand and directly apply it to what I'm working on.
We have a really good question from Anna in the chat. I'll just read it. It says, what advice do you have for teams of one or two trying to do UX and develop skills?
There's a really
Mm.
good book called The User Experience Team of One, and I really suggest that book. Um, but if you I would say just find mentors and people that you can rely on that have done this kind of work, and see how you can prioritize work, because there's so much that you can do in the UX world for any type of interface or any type of product, and it's really easy to get overwhelmed with all of the work that you can be doing. And we use this matrix quite a bit, where it's high impact, lots of work, or low impact, not a lot of work, or low impact, lots of work, or uh, high impact, not a lot of work. And we kind of rate things on that scale and say, like, okay, this is going to take a lot of work, but it's really high impact, so we should tackle this first. This is going to be really low impact and a lot of work, so maybe that's a nice to have that we're not going to tackle right away. Sruthin, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, sure. I second everything that Shelby said. And what I want to add is like, don't be afraid to get out into the field. Like an example that I can give is like one day me and Shelby just set up a table like right next to the entrance, and the main library had a computer and a bowl of candy and just started recruiting people who are interested, who want a piece of candy and who are willing to give us 5 minutes of their time to talk to. So don't be afraid to do that sort of thing. And same thing with one of the examples that Shelby was showing earlier with the poster that we set up on a whiteboard. We didn't ask permission from anyone other than our direct supervisor. We just set up a poster, like at the entrance, and we saw which areas were getting a lot of foot traffic. So that's where we set our posters. So don't be afraid to fail, I guess. Um, just go out there and try different things. If you fail, it's totally fine. If the data that you find is not matching with what your expectation is, that is also totally fine. But yeah, I think not trying is the biggest failure. So
Want to be mindful and note that we are at time. But thank you again so much. And thanks everyone for sticking out with us. We're going to have the recording up on the SAA UX microsite, and then we'll also have a link to the templates that were used, or maybe a PDF copy of those in case you want to use them and adapt them for maybe a UX study you want to do in your own reading room or your own website. So thank you so much for joining us. And thanks again, Shelby and Sruthin. This is great.
Thank you all. Thank
thank
you for
you.
having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.